All right, whatever. We did it. We did it. All right, so what time is it? It's 3 o'clock. All right, good. So first things first, the bottom center of the screen says that we've beaten 97 games in 2023 and 419 since we started doing this way back in 2020. Those numbers, I don't know how those got there, but those are just grossly incorrect. We've now beaten 98 games in 2023 and 420 since we started doing this in 2020. And no, I am not going to make a 420 joke. All right, 121 deaths. How many times did I say I died in Halo? 118? No, 128. Almost exactly the same. All right. So here's the deal. I really enjoyed this game. I really did. I think primarily the reason that I enjoyed it so much is that the combat is still pretty good by today's standards, right? It's pretty tight. The controls are very responsive. The weapons have weight. They don't feel floaty or imprecise. This is definitely a good multiplayer game. I remember I never played the campaign when I was younger, but I did play the multiplayer a lot. Because if you beat somebody, it's because you're better than them. Because anytime you add jank, you add variables, and anytime you add variables, there's a chance that you could lose because you're unlucky, right? And so I can just tell, just playing these controls, the fact that they still hold up. I'm however many years later, almost 20. I know this is a remaster and that there might be some differences in the controls, but the combat is probably about the same, and it holds up very well. It's just about as good today. By today's standards, it holds up, and that is saying something, because there are a lot of games that don't, and even some really good games, like I would say Half-Life 2 doesn't really hold up combat-wise as well as this does. Maybe, I don't know, some people might think that's fucking blasphemy, but I remember playing Half-Life 2 and thinking the controls were a little floaty and a little bit imprecise. I don't feel that with this game at all. So, and that's from the same year, so I think that's probably the primary reason that it holds up. But on top of that, the story by today's standards holds up, which is another tall order, because stories, and maybe not everything about games is better these days, but the stories are. They just are. Objectively, there are better stories in games now than there were 20 years ago. There were some good stories 20 years ago, no doubt about it, and this is definitely one of them. But stories, games nowadays have a bigger focus on story because they have a much more cinematic quality, because technically they can get away with that kind of thing. And so when you think of some of the stories of later games, like the Mass Effect trilogy and I've never played it, but Dragon Age I hear, and The Last of Us, and games like that have a God of War, the newer God of War games that have great stories. Like, this is up there. It's got a great story, and it does something that's really cool in that it has the Arbiter's side of it. That's a really cool way to not only jazz up the story, but also to jazz up the gameplay, because the Arbiter's got different moves. He can cloak, he's got different kinds of equipment that are usually available, that kind of thing. So I loved that. As far as complaints go, and I'll also say that the Master Chief Collection does seem to do a pretty good job of bringing this into the modern era. The graphics do look significantly better, although there is a certain charm to the older ones. And I really wish I had the option to watch the original cutscenes. I had to watch the newer cutscenes, and I think I would rather just watch the older ones. But so let's start with critiques. So there's one. And that's not a critique on the original game, so I'm not going to count that when ranking it. But I wish the Master Chief Collection would give me the option to watch the original cutscenes. instead of the new ones. That's just an aside. As far as Halo 2 itself, there's only one real problem I had throughout the entire game. The checkpoints are a mess. Sometimes they're like right back to back. Within a few seconds, you'll hit multiple checkpoints. Sometimes you go multiple minutes without checkpoints. And most importantly, sometimes it is hard to tell how to get the checkpoint. Sometimes it's because you cross a certain threshold. Sometimes it's because you kill all the enemies in the area. And then there's some other third threshold that I couldn't figure out, because there would be some times that I would not kill the enemies in the area. I would progress to a certain point, I would not progress to a certain point. And then suddenly I've just hit a checkpoint. And then the same thing would happen. I would progress really far. I would kill all the enemies in the area, and I would not hit a checkpoint. I just didn't understand it. It seemed there's some rules about how the checkpoints work that I don't understand, which is, it's fine. I don't have to understand everything from a developmental standpoint, but like, I need to know what triggers the checkpoints, like, and it needs to be it should be an intuitive process, you know, because sometimes I would lose 10 minutes of progress sometimes because maybe I didn't kill everybody in the room or in the area, or, you know, I went down one way instead of another or whatever. I don't know. But that happened several times, and it was really frustrating. But that's a little bit of a nitpick. As far as, like, the big things, like, technically, the Master Chief Collection has a lot of that, but it looks great. It plays great, which I think is important, because that's not a Master Chief thing. That's a Halo 2 thing. It just plays great. And the weapon variety is awesome. I think that this game is probably better in every way than the first one. I don't know if I like it as much as Reach. I don't think I like it quite as much as Halo Reach, which is the only other Halo I've played. I wish I'd played that one in order of release, but that was back before I was making a big deal about that. So the only other Halo games I've played are 1, Combat Evolved, and Reach. And I don't think I like this quite as much as Reach, because Reach just has this, like, the story is so... There's something about not being Master Chief and just being a normal dude, you know, and then you know, everything, no spoilers, but, you know, all the stuff that happens toward the end of that game. The story is awesome, and all the stuff that happens with Cortana and all that stuff in Reach is really cool. So I loved the story. The combat was about as good, but I think I liked Reach slightly more than this one. So I don't know that I'm gonna like any of the Halo games more than Reach. Reach was really, really great, but this one's awesome too. It's really good. Now, is this one gonna rank top 100? Probably not. Probably not. Let's see. So Halo Reach ranked pretty high, really high, 137. That's as high, and this game I don't think I enjoyed quite as much of that. 137 is really good, especially for such a game that's so much older. 2010 was when Reach came out. So, but the only thing that's really keeping it out of the top 100 is I'm not as big on first-person shooters as some other genres, and B, it's a little bit, you know, dated, and I enjoy some of the spectacle of some of the newer shooters. Like, I really love Call of Duty. I love Call of Duty. I get a lot of shit for loving Call of Duty as much as I do. Not the multiplayer. I don't give a shit about the multiplayer. The campaigns. The Call of Duty campaigns are amazing. Yeah, they're kind of short, but so is this. You know, and they're so realistic and they're so immersive, and I just don't think anything from 2004 or even with a nice coat of paint on it can compete with the realism and the immersiveness. And maybe that's just a preference thing. I like the realism, you know. That's one of the very few games that I don't play on normal. I play them on realistic or whatever, because they're so immersive that I feel like that goes the extra mile by playing them in, like, the hardcore modes. You know, and I just can't get something like that from Halo, you know. So yeah, I know that's blasphemy probably that I like the newer Call of Duty campaigns more than Halo 2, but that's just me. But all in all, great game. I'm really excited to play the rest of them, and I am planning to play every single one of them, all the ODSTs and the Wars and the Spartan Doodads and whatever. I'm going to play them all in order. I believe 3 is next, so I'll get to that here in the next probably couple of months. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was a good game. All right. That's it for Halo. So I'm going to... you know what? Normally this would be the part of the video where I would say, well, Halo 2, it's been fun, but we're now going to delete you from our console and never play you again. I'm not going to do that because I think I probably am going to try and get to Halo 3 fairly soon. It was over a year between 1 and 2. I don't want it to be another year before I play another Halo game. So I really enjoyed it. So I'm going to leave it on. But that's it for Halo 2.